Hello and welcome to another TED Talks watch party. My name is Ike. I am your host, and I'm so excited to share four amazing AI TED Talks with you today. But before we get started, one thing we love to do is to hear where people are tuning in from. I'm here in New York City. Drop in the chat where you are watching, and we can kind of get the dialogue going. We're so excited to share these talks with you today. We have so many great things coming for you. I can quickly go over the four speakers we'll be showcasing. First is Jennifer Goldbeck. Her talk is called "Is AI Progress Stuck?" Very intriguing. Next, we have Nome Brown. His talk is called "AI Won't Plateau If We Give It Time to Think." The third talk we'll be watching today is Sarah Giusto, The Rise of Virtual Humans and What They Mean for the Future. And the last talk we'll have is from Victor Riparbelli, which is "Will AI Make Us the Last Generation to Read and Write?" Some very exciting stuff for sure. So let's see where we have people tuning in from. We have someone from India, Iran, Algeria, Egypt, Bangladesh, Russia, Stockholm, all over. We got a real global audience here. This is very, very exciting. I'm so glad you're able to join us. AI, of course, is something that's going to affect people across the world. It already is affecting people across the world. There's so much that it will affect and change for all of us. So we're super stoked to have you here. Like I mentioned, my name is Ike. I'll be here. I'll be your host. I'll be popping in between each talk, and we'll be able to discuss a little bit about the talk we just watched. I'll be able to tell you some of the cool things that TED has coming up, and let me tell you, there's a lot of cool stuff going down in the next couple months. And yeah, we're just be able to hang out for a while. We'll be here for probably like an hour. A few other people that I'm seeing in the comments. We have someone from Nepal, someone from Vegas. I love it. I love it. Thanks so much for shouting where you're from out in the comments. It's always exciting to have so many amazing TED fans here with us. But I'll stop yapping. Why don't we just get to the first talk? As I mentioned, this is Jennifer Goldbeck. This talk is called "Is AI Progress Stuck?" So without further ado, let's get into it.
We've built artificial intelligence already that on specific tasks performs better than humans. There's AI that can play chess and beat human grandmasters. But since the introduction of generative AI to the general public a couple years ago, there's been more talk about artificial general intelligence, or AGI. And that describes the idea that there's AI that can perform at or above human levels on a wide variety of tasks, just like we humans are able to do. And people who think about AGI are worried about what it means if we reach that level of performance in the technology. Right now, there's people from the tech industry coming out and saying the AI that we're building is so powerful and dangerous that it poses a threat to civilization, and they're going to government and saying maybe you need to regulate us. Now, normally, when an industry makes a powerful new tool, they don't say it poses an existential threat to humanity and that it needs to be limited. So, why are we hearing that language? And I think there's two main reasons. One is if your technology is so powerful that it can destroy civilization, between now and then, there's an awful lot of money to be made with that. And what better way to convince your investors to put some money with you than to warn that your tool is that dangerous? The other is that the idea of AI overtaking humanity is truly a cinematic concept. We've all seen those movies. And it's kind of entertaining to think about what that would mean now with tools that we're actually able to put our hands on. In fact, it's so entertaining that it's a very effective distraction from the real problems already happening in the world because of AI. The more we think about these improbable futures, the less time we spend thinking about how do we correct deep fakes or the fact that there's AI right now being used to decide whether or not people are let out of prison and we know it's racially biased. But are we anywhere close to actually achieving AGI? Some people think so. Elon Musk said that we'll achieve it within a year. I think he posted this a few weeks ago. But like at the same time, Google put out their AI search tool that's supposed to give you the answer so you don't have to click on a link, and it's not going super well. Please don't eat rocks. Now, of course, these tools are going to get better. But if we're going to achieve AGI, or if they're even going to fundamentally change the way we work, we need to be in a place where they are continuing on a sharp upward trajectory in terms of their abilities. And that may be one path, but there's also the possibility that what we're seeing is that these tools have basically achieved what they're capable of doing. And the future is incremental improvements and a plateau. So, to understand the AI future, we need to look at all the hype around it and get under there and see what's technically possible. And we also need to think about where are the areas that we need to worry and where are the areas that we don't. So, if we want to realize the hype around AI, the one main challenge that we have to solve is reliability. These algorithms are wrong all the time, like we saw with Google. And Google actually came out and said after these bad search results were popularized that they don't know how to fix this problem. I use ChatGPT every day. I write a newsletter that summarizes discussions on far-right message boards. And so I download that data. ChatGPT helps me write a summary. And it makes me much more efficient than if I had to do it by hand, but I have to correct it every day because it misunderstands something, it takes out the context. And so because of that, we can't just rely on it to do the job for me. And this reliability is really important. Now, a subpart of reliability in this space is AI hallucination, a great technical term for the fact that AI just makes stuff up a lot of the time. I did this in my newsletter. I said, ChatGPT, are there any people threatening violence? If so, give me the quotes. And it produced these 3 really clear threats of violence that didn't sound anything like people talk on these message boards. And I went back to the data and nobody ever said it. It just made it up out of thin air. And you may have seen this if you've used an AI image generator. I asked it to give me a close-up of people holding hands. That's a hallucination and a disturbing one at that. We have to solve this hallucination problem if this AI is going to live up to the hype. And I don't think it's a solvable problem with the way this technology works. There are people who say we're going to have it taken care of in a few months, but there's no technical reason to think that's the case because generative AI always makes stuff up. When you ask it a question, it's creating that answer or creating that image from scratch when you ask. It's not like a search engine that goes and finds the right answer on a page. And so because its job is to make things up every time, I don't know that we're going to be able to get it to make up correct stuff and then not make up other stuff. That's not what it's trained to do. And we're very far from achieving that. And in fact, there are spaces where they're trying really hard. One space that there's a lot of enthusiasm for AI is in the legal area, where they hope it will help write legal briefs or do research. Some people have found out the hard way that they should not write legal briefs right now with ChatGPT and send them to federal court because it just makes up cases that sound right. And that's a really fast way to get a judge mad at you and to get your case thrown out. Now, there are legal research companies right now that advertise hallucination-free generative AI. And I was really dubious about this. And researchers at Stanford actually went in and checked it. And they found the best performing of these hallucination-free tools still hallucinate 17% of the time. So, like, on one hand, it's a great scientific achievement that we have built a tool that we can pose basically any query to. And 60 or 70 or maybe even 80% of the time, it gives us a reasonable answer. But if we're going to rely on using those tools and they're wrong 20 or 30% of the time, there's no model where that's really useful. And that kind of leads us into how do we make these tools that useful? Because even if you don't believe me and you think we're going to solve this hallucination problem, we're going to solve the reliability problem, the tools still need to get better than they are now. And there's 2 things they need to do that. One is lots more data, and 2 is the technology itself has to improve. So where are we going to get that data? Because they've kind of taken all the reliable stuff online already. And if we were to find twice as much data as they've already had, that doesn't mean they're going to be twice as smart. I don't know if there's enough data out there. And it's compounded by the fact that one way that generative AI has been very successful is at producing low quality content online. That's bots on social media, misinformation, and these SEO pages that don't really say anything but have a lot of ads and come up high in the search results. And if the AI starts training on pages that it generated. We know from decades of AI research that they just get progressively worse. It's like the digital version of mad cow disease. Let's say we solve the data problem. You still have to get the technology better. And we've seen $50 billion in the last couple years invested in improving generative AI. And that's resulted in $3 billion in revenue. So that's not sustainable. But of course, it's early, right? Companies may find ways to start using this technology, but is it going to be valuable enough to justify the tens and maybe hundreds of billions of dollars of hardware that needs to be bought to make these models get better? I don't think so. And we can kind of start looking at practical examples to figure that out. And it leads us to think about where are the spaces we need to worry and not. Because one place that everybody's worried with this is that AI is going to take all of our jobs. Lots of people are telling us that's going to happen and people are worried about it. And I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding at the heart of that. So imagine this scenario. We have a company and they can afford to employ 2 software engineers. And if we were to give those software engineers some generative AI to help write code, which is something it's pretty good at, let's say they're twice as efficient. That's a big overestimate, but it makes the math easy. So in that case, the company has 2 choices. They could fire one of those software engineers because the other one can do the work of 2 people now, or they already could afford 2 of them. And now they're twice as efficient, so they're bringing in more money. So why not keep both of them and take that extra profit? The only way this math fails is if the AI is so expensive that it's not worth it. But that would be like the AI is $100,000 a year to do one person's worth of work. So that sounds really expensive. And practically, there are already open source versions of these tools that are low cost that companies can install and run themselves. Now, they don't perform as well as the flagship models, but if they're half as good and really cheap, wouldn't you take those over the one that costs $100,000 a year to do one person's work? Of course you would. And so even if we solve reliability, we solve the data problem, we make the models better, the fact that there are cheap versions of this available suggests that companies aren't going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars to replace their workforce with AI. There are areas that we need to worry, though, because if we look at AI now, there are lots of problems that we haven't been able to solve. I've been building artificial intelligence for over 20 years. And one thing we know is that if we train AI on human data, the AI adopts human biases. And we have not been able to fix that. We've seen those biases start showing up in generative AI. And the gut reaction is always, well, let's just put in some guardrails to stop the AI from doing the biased thing. But one, that never fixes the bias because the AI finds a way around it. And two, the guardrails themselves can cause problems. So Google has an AI image generator, and they tried to put guardrails in place to stop the bias in the results. And it turned out it made it wrong. This is a request for a picture of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and it's a great picture, but it is not factually correct. And so in trying to stop the bias, we end up creating more reliability problems. We haven't been able to solve this problem of bias. And if we're thinking about deferring decision making, replacing human decision makers, and relying on this technology, and we can't solve this problem, that's a thing that we should worry about and demand solutions to before it's just widely adopted and employed because it's sexy. And I think there's one final thing that's missing here, which is our human intelligence is not defined by our productivity at work. At its core, it's defined by our ability to connect with other people, our ability to have emotional responses, to take our past and integrate it with new information and creatively come up with new things. And that's something that artificial intelligence is not now, nor will it ever be capable of doing. It may be able to imitate it and give us a cheap facsimile of genuine connection and empathy and creativity, but it can't do those core things to our humanity. And that's why I'm not really worried about AGI taking over civilization. But if you come away from this disbelieving everything I have told you, and right now you're worried about humanity being destroyed by AI overlords, the one thing to remember is, despite what the movies have told you, if it gets really bad, we still can always just turn it off. Thank you.
All right, all right, all right. What an amazing talk. That is such a great way to start this session. For those who are just joining, we are doing a TED Talks watch party. That was Jennifer Goldbeck's talk, all about is AI progress stuck? So before we move on to the next talk, I do have a question for the chat, which I think will be fun. What do you wish AI could do that it can't do now? In that talk, she talked about all the ways that it kind of messes up and makes mistakes and kind of makes fumbles and stuff. So is there some things that you wish that AI could do that it can't do now? Let us know in the chat, and I'll read some off before we move on to the next talk. So yeah, let's see what comes through. I know for myself, I wish that it was a little bit better at writing and like imitating the human voice. As she mentioned in the talk, it tries its best and usually fails, so it doesn't work all that great. So let me know in the chat what you wish AI could do that you can't do now. For those who are just joining, that was the first talk of 4 awesome AI talks that we'll be watching together here on TED's YouTube. My name is Ike. I'll be your host today, kind of walking you through all of these talks. While we wait for answers to come in, I can give you a little sneak peek at what we will be talking. The talk we'll watch next, which is from Nome Brown, and it is all about is AI will it plateau? And if we give it time, will that help it to not plateau? And I think that's going to be really cool. He is a research scientist at OpenAI. So obviously, ChatGPT is made by OpenAI. So a lot of interesting and amazing stuff is coming through there. Let's take a look. See. Live videos, Daniel says. That would be pretty great if AI could do that. Cash4 says, understanding emotions. That is super fascinating, and I do wish it could do better at that. Like the amount of amazing applications, if we could get AI to help understand some emotions while we're trying to discuss it with it, would be fantastic. If there are any other thoughts on what you wish AI could do, drop them in, and we'll be able to read those off before we move on to the next talk. Let's see. Another question, if you are thinking of that way, is what frustrates you about the current state of AI? I think this kind of goes hand in hand. So I can definitely say that there are some times where I have to talk to AI, like I have to break things down so specifically to try to get it to understand what I want it to do. So that can be frustrating. Let's see. Maria says, relieve anxiety. What a fantastic use case for AI if we could get it to do it. Sean says medical diagnosis. I think they're working on that. And ideally, if they can get it better, like everyone benefits, that would be great. We have someone that says personal trainer. That's a great idea. If it could take in all the information, all the stats, and all the things that you input and actually become your personal trainer, I think that could be very helpful and beneficial. And then we have one other person that says make financial decisions. That sounds like a tricky one. If you could get it to a point where it would be reliable to help make financial decisions for you in your life, that would probably be pretty cool. All right. So without further ado, why don't we jump to the next talk? As I mentioned before, this is Nome Brown. He is a researcher at OpenAI, and his talk is about allowing AI to think to get to the next set of problems. So without further ado, let's watch.
The incredible progress in AI over the past 5 years can be summarized in one word: scale. Yes, there have been algorithmic advances, but the frontier models of today are still based on the same transformer architecture that was introduced in 2017. And they are trained in a very similar way to the models that were trained in 2019. The main difference is the scale of the data and compute that goes into these models. In 2019, GPT-2 cost about $5,000 to train. Every year since then, for the past 5 years, the models have gotten bigger, trained for longer, on more data. And every year they've gotten better. But today's frontier models can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to train. And there are reasonable concerns among some that AI will soon plateau or hit a wall. After all, Are we really going to train models that cost hundreds of billions of dollars? What about trillions of dollars? At some point, the scaling paradigm breaks down. This is, in my opinion, a reasonable concern. And in fact, it's one that I used to share. But today, I am more confident than ever that AI will not plateau. And in fact, I believe that we will see AI progress accelerate in the coming months. To explain why, I want to tell a story from my time as a PhD student. I started my PhD in 2012, and I was lucky to be able to work on the most exciting projects I could imagine. Developing AIs that could learn on their own how to play poker. Now, I had played a lot of poker when I was in high school and college, so for me, this was basically my childhood dream job. Now, contrary to its reputation, poker is not just a game of luck. It's also a game of deep strategy. You can kind of think of it like chess with a deck of cards. When I started my PhD, there had already been several years of research on how to make AIs that play poker. And the general feeling among the research community is that we had figured out the paradigm, and now all we needed to do was scale it. So every year, we would train larger poker AIs for longer on more data. And every year, they would get better, just like today's frontier language models. By 2015, they got so good that we thought they might be able to rival the top human experts. So we challenged 4 of the world's top poker players to an 80,000-hand poker competition with $120,000 in prize money to incentivize them to play their best. And unfortunately, our bot lost by a wide margin. In fact, it was clear even on day 1 that our bot was outmatched. But during this competition, I noticed something interesting. You see, leading up to this competition, our bot had played almost 1 trillion hands of poker over thousands of CPUs for about 3 months. But when it came time to actually play against these human experts, the bot acted instantly. It took about 10 milliseconds to make a decision, no matter how difficult it was. Meanwhile, the human experts had only played maybe 10 million hands of poker in their lifetimes. But when they were faced with a difficult decision, they would take the time to think. If it was an easy decision, they might only think for a couple seconds. If it was a difficult decision, they might think for a few minutes. But they would take advantage of the time that they had to think through their decisions. In Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, he describes this as the difference between System 1 thinking and System 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is the faster, more intuitive kind of thinking that you might use, for example, to recognize a friendly face or laugh at a funny joke. System 2 thinking is the slower, more methodical thinking that you might use for things like planning a vacation or writing an essay or solving a hard math problem. After this competition, I wondered whether this System 2 thinking might be what's missing from our bot and might explain the difference in the performance between our bot and the human experts. So I ran some experiments to see just how much of a difference this System 2 thinking makes in poker. And the results that I got blew me away. It turned out that having the bot think for just 20 seconds in a hand of poker got the same boost in performance as scaling up the model by 100,000x and training it for 100,000 times longer. Let me say that again. Spending 20 seconds thinking in a hand of poker got the same boost in performance as scaling up the size of the model and the training by 100,000x. When I got this result, I literally thought it was a bug. For the first 3 years of my PhD, I had managed to scale up these models by 100x. I was proud of that work. I had written multiple papers on how to do that scaling. But I knew pretty quickly that all of that would be a footnote compared to just scaling up System 2 thinking. So based on these results, we redesigned the poker AI from the ground up. Now we were focused on scaling up System 2 thinking in addition to System 1. And in 2017, we again challenged 4 of the world's top poker pros to a 120,000 hand poker competition, this time with $200,000 in prize money. And this time, we beat all of them by a huge margin. This was a huge surprise to everybody involved. It was a huge surprise to the poker community. It was a huge surprise to the AI community. and honestly, even a huge surprise to us. I literally did not think it was possible to win by the kind of margin that we won by. In fact, I think what really highlights just how surprising this result was is that when we announced the competition, the poker community decided to do what they do best and gamble on who would win. When we announced the competition, the betting odds were about 4-1 against us. After the first 3 days of the competition, when we had won for the first 3 days, the betting odds were still about 50-50. But by the 8th day of the competition, you could no longer gamble on which side would win. You could only gamble on which human would lose the least by the end. This pattern of AI benefiting by thinking for longer is not unique to poker. And in fact, we've seen it in multiple other games as well. For example, in 1997, IBM created Deep Blue, an AI that plays chess. And they challenged the world champion, Garry Kasparov, to a tournament and beat him in a landmark achievement for AI. But Deep Blue didn't act instantly. Deep Blue thought for a couple minutes before making each move. Similarly, in 2016, DeepMind created AlphaGo, an AI that plays the game of Go, which is even more complicated than the game of chess. And they too challenged a world champion, Lee Sedol, and beat him in a landmark achievement for AI. But AlphaGo also didn't act instantly. AlphaGo took the time to think for a couple minutes before making each move. In fact, the authors of AlphaGo later published a paper where they measured just how much of a difference this thinking time makes for the strongest version of AlphaGo. And what they found is that when AlphaGo had the time to think for a couple minutes, it would beat any human alive by a huge margin. But when it had to act instantly, it would do much worse than top humans. In 2021, there was a paper that was published that tried to measure just how much of a difference this thinking time made a bit more scientifically. In it, the authors found that in these games, scaling up thinking time by 10x was roughly the equivalent of scaling up the model size and training by 10x. So you have this very clear, clean relationship between scaling up system 2 thinking time and scaling up system 1 training. Now, why does this matter? Well, remember I mentioned at the start of this talk that today's frontier models cost hundreds of millions of dollars to train. But the cost of querying them, the cost of asking a question and getting an answer, is fractions of a penny. So this result says that if you want an even better model, there are 2 ways you could do it. One is to keep doing what we've been doing for the past 5 years and scaling up system 1 training. Go from spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a model to billions of dollars on a model. The other is to scale up system 2 thinking and go from spending a penny per query to 10 cents per query. At a certain point, that trade-off becomes well worth it. Now, of course, all of these results are in the domain of games. And there was a reasonable question about whether these results could be extended to a more complicated setting like language. But recently, my colleagues and I at OpenAI released O1, a new series of language models that think before responding. If it's an easy question, O1 might only think for a few seconds. If it's a difficult decision, it might think for a few minutes. But just like the AIs for chess, Go, and poker, O1 benefits by being able to think for longer. This opens up a completely new dimension for scaling. We're no longer constrained to just scaling up system 1 training. Now we can scale up system 2 thinking as well. And the beautiful thing about scaling up in this direction is that it's largely untapped. Remember, I mentioned that the frontier models of today cost less than a penny to query. Now, when I mention this to people, a frequent response that I get is that people might not be willing to wait around for a few minutes to get a response from a model, or pay a few dollars to get an answer to their question. And it's true that O1 takes longer and costs more than other models that are out there. But I would argue that for some of the most important problems that we care about, that cost is well worth it. So let's do an experiment and see. Raise your hand if you would be willing to pay more than $1 for a new cancer treatment. All right, basically everybody in the audience. Keep your hand up. How about $1,000? How about $1 million? What about for more efficient solar panels? Or for a proof of the Riemann hypothesis? The common conception of AI today is chatbots, but it doesn't have to be that way. This isn't a revolution that's 10 years away or even 2 years away. It's a revolution that's happening now. My colleagues and I have already released O1 Preview, and I have had people come to me and say that it has saved them days' worth of work, including researchers at top universities. And that's just the preview. I mentioned at the start of this talk that the history of AI progress over the past 5 years can be summarized in one word: scale. So far, that has meant scaling up the System 1 training of these models. Now we have a new paradigm, one where we can scale up System 2 thinking as well. And we are just at the very beginning of scaling up in this direction. Now, I know that there are some people who will still say that AI is going to plateau or hit a wall. And to them, I say, want to bet? Thank you.
All right. Great talk. Great talk. So for those who are just joining us, this is the TED Talks watch party all about AI. We're having a great time. We're about halfway through, so feel free to stick around. We've got a lot more great content coming your way before you know it. One thing I did want to mention, though, is if you have any questions throughout this whole thing, feel free to drop them in the comments. One of my amazing colleagues is in there typing away, adding links, doing all that stuff. So feel free to ask any questions you have about these talks, about TED, about any of the things I mentioned during this whole session. So we got plenty of people in there watching and keeping an eye on all of that. In the name of AI, one thing that I do want to mention is we have games, an AI game, if you will. I don't know if anyone knows that, but we have a whole division of TED games, and we're super excited about sharing them. The one that focuses a lot on AI is called the Purring Test. And if you like cats, and you like AI, and you like games in general, you're going to love the Purring Test. We also have 2 other games. One is called Letter Brew, which is a fantastic and really, really unique game. We also have this thing called Tumble Words, which is through Netflix games, and that is kind of like your classic word game. You can play with people. It's very, very exciting. And if you want to learn more, for one, you could go to ted.com/games, but also on March 28th, myself and TED's own game wizard, Alex Rosenthal, will be live right here on TED's YouTube channel doing a full games demo. We've done this before on TikTok. We play the games with you. We go through all the things. It's going to be a really good time. We have a really fun environment. There's so much good energy, and you can play along. So we play in a way that lets you, the audience, the people watching, can actually interact with us while we are playing the game. So if you're interested, make sure to bookmark that in your calendar. March 28th, right here on TED's YouTube, we'll be doing a full live TED Games demo. I'll be showing you all the cool things we have out now and maybe some sneak peeks at some games for the future. We got some cool stuff coming up. So for those who are just joining, my name is Ike. I am your host for today's watch party. We have 2 talks in, 2 talks to go. Our next talk is going to be all about virtual humans and using AI and what that means for the real world, the virtual world, asking important questions. It's a really, really cool talk, and I'm really excited to show it to you. This will be very, very fun. So if you're interested in AI humans, maybe you follow one on Instagram or something like that, I think this talk is going to be of interest to you. So without further ado, let's get into talk number 3 of this TED Talk watch party, all about AI.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah, and I'm a talent manager. Who do I manage? A girl named Imma. She's a fashionista that lives in Tokyo. She posts about her life and her outfits on social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and X. She has a younger brother named Zen that she always gets in a fight with, a little dog named Einstein that she takes for walks. Her favorite food is yakitori, and she sits first row at fashion shows and dances to TikTok videos. Yep, just a normal girl online. Except she doesn't exist. She's a virtual human made from CGI born in 2017. In other words, she's a fictional character made from 3D softwares, a unique blend of softwares like Maya and Unreal Engine, and a bit more. She's not a mimic or a copy of anyone that's existing in real life. She's a complete original character. These are some of her Instagram posts. The middle one is her brushing her teeth when she's virtual. The other one, it says, hashtag, I think I'm CGI, but these dogs are real. This one goes, I cut half my bang off. Is it gonna grow back even though I'm virtual? These are some of her other TikTok videos. Oh, and that brother that she has? Yep, you guessed it. He's not real either. I wish he was, though. We manage him and dozens other virtual humans around the world. And in the near future, we're integrating them with AI so that they become autonomous virtual humans that you can have a conversation with. This is a little demo video.
Nice to meet you, John. Feel free to ask me anything.
Nice to meet you too. How are you?
Nice to meet you. I'm feeling good today. How about you?
How does it actually feel to be fused with AI?
Yes, they exist in the virtual world, but these virtual humans have an impact in our real world too. Imma has repeatedly shared her opinions on real-world issues, including climate change and Black Lives Matter. She initiated a community get-together in the virtual world during COVID for people who are feeling lonely and isolated. She also shares about her Japanese culture and subculture to her global audience. For these actions, she was actually chosen as one of a Forbes Woman of the Year, right beside the likes of climate change activist Greta Thunberg and former US First Lady Michelle Obama. She's also been featured in Tokyo 2020 Paralympics in the closing ceremony and has been awarded an award from the government of Japan for her actions in going to Cambodia and voicing about its domestic violence issues. She's also in real campaigns. She's worked with brands from Amazon, Porsche, BMW, skincare brand SK2, IKEA, and more. Right now, you can actually see an ad of her all over the world with her campaign with Coach, right-side co-star Lil Nas X. She's also in real magazines on the covers from Harper's Bazaar, Vogue, and Wonderland. Yes, she doesn't technically exist, but the younger generation of Gen Z don't care. Gen Zs love her because they feel a real connection to her. For them, there's not much of a difference between someone that is real life breathing, that's doing Instagram, and a virtual human like Imma. For example, I know a lot of Gen Zs love Kylie Jenner. And even if they've never met her before, they feel like they know everything about her, from where she takes her family to vacation, her aspirations, and to even what she eats for breakfast. Why? Because she posts these things online, and people feel a real connection to her. Same thing with Imma. She posts about her life online, and people feel a real connection. She posts an outfit picture, and people would ask, where's that dress from? She gets a lot of questions about her perfectly cut bob hair, too. People want to know who's the famous hairstylist that's keeping it perfectly cut. He or she doesn't exist because the hair is not real. Like this, people love interacting with her, sharing about their life to her, and even giving her real life advice when she needs it. And I mean, I think we've all caught up by now, scrolling through Instagram, TikTok, or Live. What's really real in the virtual world anyways? Now, does all of this scare any of you? Maybe it does, but I promise I'm not a scary AI, evil virtual human scientist. I'm actually quite the opposite. I'm a human lover. And I truly believe that this virtual human technology will better our world and make the treasures that we have as humans, our love, our connection, and our self-expressions way better. Before all of this, I used to be an artist. I still am at heart, but like most artists, all my life I've been searching for something beautiful and meaningful. I felt like I found it, the beautiful and meaningful, in Imma when I first laid eyes on her. Well, actually, not gonna lie, when I first saw her, I was like, what the heck is this? But the more I thought about it and thought about the real connections that people are having with this piece of technology, I was amazed. I thought it was revolutionary because all my life, technology to me has been something useful, something I use every day, but it was never personal to me. For example, I would ask Siri, what's the weather like? And it would say, it's 11 Celsius today. And that was it. I didn't really have a connection or relationship with it. But humans are innately emotional creatures. And our world moves with what moves our hearts. So what if we can get that same feeling from technology? What if we can create relationships like we do with friends, family, coworkers, and even with our alternative selves through virtual humans? What if we can have a positive impact in different industries, from medical, educational, and entertainment, all leveraging on the deep connection between humans and technology? Imma is the first example of so much more to come. If there was a book of virtual human history, we're barely on page 1. And who's better to tell you all of that than Imma herself? We're going to be joining with her live from Tokyo. Hi, Imma.
Well, hi, Sarah.
Hi, Imma.
And hi, everyone. Wow, look at the audience. Be on the TED stage. I can't believe it. I have to pinch myself. Oh, wait. I can't. I'm virtual. Wow. Sometimes we all forget, right? Anyways, my name is Imma, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. I'm joining you all the way from Japan. Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa. How's the weather like in Tokyo today?
Well, I think it rained a little bit this morning, but it's quite sunny, and you should be get ready for the summer when you get back, Sarah.
Nice. Vancouver it's beautiful here. I can see the ocean, the mountains, and I think it's around 11 Celsius right now.
Wow, sounds freezing. Well, anyways, even though I'm in Tokyo right now, I can technically go anywhere. So a special invite. I love making friends. If you feel like connecting, I'll wait for your DMs or whatever. Just don't send anything weird, okay? Was that good, Sarah?
That was great. Thanks for popping by, and say bye to the audience for us.
Bye. Good luck, Sarah.
Thank you, Imma. So that was Imma. How I want to conclude is we shouldn't get caught up in the topic of what's real and what's not real, because, what's really real anyways? We should get away from the dystopian narrative of the virtual world that we have and seize possibilities for human connection and possibilities for human expression. Because human possibility is same as technology. It's limitless. Thank you. Arigato.
All right. That is talk number 3 during this TED Talk watch party. Thank you so much for joining. That talk is awesome. It makes me think immediately of the question, how do you feel about the future with or without AI avatars? Like, are you excited? Are you nervous? One of my colleagues is dropping in the chat right now a poll. So if you have an opinion about AI avatars being on our social media platforms, being a part of our world, make sure to answer the poll, and I'll let you know the results once we get a little bit further throughout this program. If you're just joining, welcome to the TED Talks Watch Party. This one's all about AI. We have watched 3 amazing talks, and we have 1 more to go. But before we get there, I did want to do a small shout out to our TED membership program. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of this amazing thing that helps support TED's nonprofit mission. And through that, you get access to a lot of really cool benefits, one of which is you will get access to a session from TED 2025 before almost anyone else in the world. So for those who don't know, every year we have a really big, amazing TED conference in Vancouver. The one for this year is coming up in April. And if you are a TED member, you get access to one of those sessions filled with the most incredible, brand new, fresh ideas and talks before anyone else in the world. So that's one of the many benefits that you can get from becoming a TED member. Another thing that we do is we have membership events. So if you like this format, think of that, but with the actual speaker. So they'll talk a little bit about their talk, and then one of our amazing other hosts will have a conversation about them, and you'll get to actually talk and interact with them directly. So we've got a lot of cool things. You should definitely check out TED.com/membership. We'll be dropping links in the chat if you're interested. But yeah, we are so grateful for our members, and we have a lot of exciting things that we like to do with them. So let me take a look and see how the poll results are coming along before we move forward. Okay, so a lot of people are saying excited, about 57% so far. We have 29% that are scared, understandable, and we have 14 that are saying other. I think, if anyone is asking, I think I fall more in the scared, excited camp, a little bit more in the excited. I think there's a lot of cool applications that we could potentially use with AI avatars and things like that, especially if AI gets better. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how things develop over the next, I was going to say 10 years, but honestly, the AI is moving so fast, probably 2 or 3 years. AI avatars will be around us so much faster. We've got someone who's saying they're interested but worried. Understandable. I can relate to that. Yeah, feel free to drop in your thoughts on AI avatars. Make sure to fill out the poll. We got like 44 people that have voted so far. Let's get those numbers up. We're excited to hear what you have to think. So we have one more talk. One last talk. I know. I hope you're having a good time, but we only have time for one more. And this one, which I find a little bit almost more scary than the AI avatars. The name of this talk is, Will AI Make Us the Last Generation to Read and Write? I mean, talk about drama, am I right? That is a crazy idea. This talk is so fascinating. It'll definitely make you think differently about the world that we're currently living in. So I'll come back at the end. We can talk a little bit more about this one when we're done. But for now, let's watch this talk. Here we go.
Your grandchildren will be the last generation to read and write. I know that sounds strange, almost unthinkable. Text is everywhere around us. We use it hundreds of times every single day, and it's woven into the fabric of our daily lives. But today, I'm going to make the case that humanity's relentless pursuit of better ways to convey ideas and preserve knowledge doesn't end with text. I think we're at the dawn of a new era of AI-enabled communication. And I think that future generations will slowly replace text with more intuitive forms of communication, like audio, video, and eventually immersive technologies. And one day, I think we'll look back at reading and writing as historical artifacts, like we do with papyrus scrolls, or hieroglyphs, or cave paintings. Don't get me wrong, I love reading. This is not a personal vendetta against text. Some of my fondest memories is walking around my local library back in Copenhagen, that you see behind me here, picking out all kinds of books, mostly science fiction books, returning home to read them, so I could go back there again and pick out the next set of exciting books to read. I love disappearing into these worlds that were different than the physical world around me. And that, of course, only was amplified when I discovered the internet at around 10 years old, which opened up an entirely new world of ideas, of music, and people. On the internet, information was free, And I saw firsthand how technology didn't just change the distribution of content, it changed the content in itself. The difference between a lively forum and a book is massive, right? A blog and a newspaper, and so on. In music, which is my big passion outside of work, I saw how software instruments and sampling and drum machines gave birth to entirely new genres that had never been possible before. And not only that, but all the people around the world making new, exciting music could share it with the world without the middlemen of labels. The video games I played got connected to the internet. You formed communities with people around the world that you didn't know. That's what my parents thought, at least. I started my first business when I was 13 years old in World of Warcraft. We were 50 people slaying dragons together online. And I would later learn in life that it's actually not that different than running a startup. And those early years of my life sparked a lifelong interest in media and technology, how they changed the way that we create, consume, play, and communicate. And in 2016, I discovered a research paper called Face to Face by Professor Matthias Niesner and his team. They built a system that, using neural networks, could produce really, really photorealistic video. And when I saw this for the first time, I felt like I'd seen magic. And I was convinced that in 10 years, you're going to be able to create a Hollywood film from your bedroom without needing anything else than just your imagination. That's in 3 years, and I think that's actually going to hold up. I couldn't get this idea out of my mind, and eventually I ended up founding Synthesia, an AI video company, along with Matthias and Lourdes and Stefan, my co-founders. And this really was a way to kind of marry my interest in media and technology and sci-fi. We started the company with the vision of making everyone in the world into a Hollywood director. And while that's definitely still a very exciting vision, as the years kind of went on, we realized that as exciting as AI-generated Hollywood films is, it's only the tip of the iceberg. The really exciting potential about these technologies is that they're going to enable every single piece of content, from text messages to novels to boring corporate training materials, to be brought alive in video and audio. But before we talk more about video, let's talk about text. Text is the original way of compression for human communication. We encode our thoughts and knowledge into symbols that can convey meaning across time and space. That hasn't always been the case. Thousands of years ago, text didn't exist, and the only way we had to share information was orally. In 1500 before Christ, the first alphabet was invented, and it essentially took these very complex writing systems and simplified them into just a few characters, laying the groundwork for the modern society that we know today. In 1440, Gutenberg invented the printing press, and for the first time in history, we could mass produce written content. It would take until the mid-20th century before reading became something for the masses and people slowly became literate. If we fast forward to today, text is ubiquitous, and it's impossible to live a life without being able to read and write. But as great as text is, it's an imperfect technology. It's very efficient and it's very scalable. But it's a very, very lossy method of compressing information. It lacks all the nuance and additional information that we get when we speak to someone in real life. Your tone of voice, your body language, where you are, all those things matter for that message, right? Text can be interpreted a million different ways depending on the receiver. Is this good news or bad news? It's very hard to tell, right? But we invented emojis to make it a little bit better. But even emojis are not perfect. People are still debating if this smiley is happy, is it pissed, is it planning to kill you? The debate goes on. And if you think about visual communication, this is an image. It took all of you a few seconds to look at this image and understand it, right? It's a very intuitive way of consuming information. What if I'd shared this with you instead? A text description of the image. It would have taken you 30 seconds to read it, a high cognitive load to take those pieces of those symbols and turn them into an image in your mind, right? And even if I gave you 30 pages of description, you would always imagine a different image than what you're seeing behind me right now. Once we add a time dimension, as in video, this problem massively compounds. So it's not that strange that since the invention of text, we've been innovating towards richer and more intuitive ways of exchanging information. We invented radio, TV, internet, VR, social media, and now AI. In 2024, it's very obvious that people want to watch and listen. If you look at the digital economy, TikTok is the fastest growing social network. It's also the fastest growing search engine, which is very interesting. Video and audio is everywhere in the apps that we use. We send voice notes on WhatsApp. Now we're on dating apps. When we shop, we watch product videos. And my thesis is that the more we consume video, the more bored we are by text. And I have to say, this is also true for me, even though I love reading. When I learn something new, I usually start on YouTube, on TikTok, listen to a podcast. And only if I'm really, really invested in something, I'll take the hours out of my day to read a 200-page book. It just doesn't feel that much like it's worth it anymore. And for a lot of you, you probably feel the same. Do you want to learn music theory from a long book or from a video on YouTube that has audio? Do you want to listen to the news on a podcast on the way to work or fold out this physical piece of paper somewhere? Most people feel like this, but we all have this guilt. I have at least. I feel guilty when I watch videos and when I listen to podcasts instead of picking up a good old-fashioned book. You hear the commentary in this. Young people are unable to focus anymore. They need constant dopamine hits from cheap content that they scroll through on their social media apps. They don't get outside their room anymore, right? Exactly the same thing parents have been saying for 200 years. I have a provocative idea. What if we're all just tired of overly dense, slow information? Books with too many pages, newspaper articles with filler. What if we become much more sensitive to the quality and the conciseness of the content that we consume because we now have infinite choice? What if the current generation of kids are able to learn and absorb information much faster because of technology, not despite it? Is the problem us, or is the problem text? We still read a lot, right? We just read from many different sources every single day, not just a book and a newspaper. Read our messaging apps and our social media networks and our blog. We listen to long-form podcasts, very growing, right? But we still have this idea that books are morally superior in some sense. And even though I'm giving you this talk, I still very much feel it. I don't know why that is. I'll let someone else do the research on that. But it's definitely very interesting how we psychologically attribute more value to the written word. So why is so much information still text if you really prefer video? It's pretty simple. The answer is cost. Cost in time and cost in money. Today, we have to pick between the speed and scale of text or the accuracy and engagement of video content. And so there's this underlying economic incentive where only the content and the ideas and the knowledge we deem important enough gets converted into video and audio formats. And so in the entertainment industry, this means that we get Fast and the Furious 278 rather than avant-garde cinema from film students. In the corporate world, this means that the Super Bowl ad is a video, but the fire safety video is a long, boring document. And this is about to change in a big, big way. AI will change that equation completely. With AI, we can get both speed, scale, accuracy, and engagement. AI can create highly photorealistic content digitally. Computers can learn what the world looks like, and it can replicate it and remix it in amazing details. This is going to usher in a new wave of creativity. And it's not going to be driven by Hollywood. It's going to be driven by YouTubers and young people with great ideas who will take these tools and tell amazing stories. At Synthesia, we focus on AI avatars, digital humans that sound and look like us. They can even be us if you make a clone of yourself. Today, our avatars already interact with millions of people every single day. They teach school subjects, they onboard restaurant workers, provide health guidance, and sell products in more than 130 different languages. And they're getting really good. Very soon, they'll be very difficult to distinguish from reality.
Hello, I'm Alex, and personal avatar. I am so excited and happy to be here. Can you see how expressive I look and hear how natural I sound? Isn't it great? Bye for now. Hope to see you soon.
This video is entirely AI generated.
I'm Alex.
They still don't know when to stop speaking. So with these technologies, we can create anything without the need for cameras. We can bring our imaginations to life without the traditional barriers of skill and cost. But what's more exciting about all these new technologies is that they're going to make it extremely easy for anyone to create content. We've already seen how keyboards and computers turned all of us into writers. We've seen how PowerPoint turned all of us into designers. And with AI, everyone is going to be able to be a director producing Hollywood-grade video without needing any training at all, like you can see here behind me. At Synthesa, we've already turned more than 1 million people into video creators. And it's really fun to see all the things people make videos about, but they don't have to ask their boss because they can just log on and make the videos themselves. Why do people make videos? It's not a very well-researched area yet, but we've been working with UCL in London to figure out how do we learn differently with video and AI video versus text. We did a study with 400 participants. It's still ongoing. We plan to publish the results sometime next year, but there's some really interesting initial findings. When you just ask people, do you prefer to learn with AI video or text? The results are pretty astonishing. 77% of people prefer to learn through text. Oh, sorry, through video. So faster and easier content creation will be transformative. But with new technologies, we always invent new media formats. And right now, most AI-generated content is what I call a bridge genre. We're using it to create old formats with new technologies. Just like the first the first websites look like newspapers on a screen, AI videos today are linear, they have a beginning and an end. They essentially emulate what we can record with a physical camera. Once we combine AI video with reasoning systems like language models, we're going to unlock an entirely new type of media that's going to be interactive and personalized. It's going to be able to think and narrate and personalize content for us. If you're learning music theory, you'll have an assistant that knows your skill level, knows your taste in music, and build a curriculum around that. All of your kids maybe will have their favorite celebrities teaching them math in school. And they'll do it in a context that's interesting for your kid. Maybe that's soccer or sci-fi or whatever. Education is going to be turbocharged with these new AI systems. Entertainment is going to change. It's going to be shaped by the viewers and by the world around it. We'll probably have interactive films. We'll have TV series that never end. It sounds weird, but in many ways, this is what a social media feed is, right? It's just an endless story. Your TikTok feed is also an endless stream of personalized content just for you. And when we combine this with new form factors like AR, VR, brain-computer interfaces, media is increasingly going to appear like real life. Maybe we'll be transmitting messages to our friends just via thought in the future. And our inbox is not going to be text. It's going to be videos of all your friends and your relatives' AI avatars talking to you. It sounds weird, but I don't think it's that far off. And I promise you that your fire safety video at work will be a Spielberg-esque masterpiece in the not-so-distant future. These technologies open up a Pandora box of questions. There's ethical questions, there's political questions, there's design questions, and there's commercial questions. And there are many speakers today sharing great viewpoints in those. I'll leave you with a few provocative questions. Do you care if our content is AI generated or not? Do you care when a film uses special effects or green screen? Do we care that actors in commercials are paid to play someone else and endorse products that they've probably never heard of? Do we care if actors are real or generated? Are you a fan of Harry Potter or Daniel Radcliffe? Does it matter that Daniel Radcliffe exists in the real world? You'll never meet him, probably, right? What about Mickey Mouse or Pixar characters? Can we feel something for them, despite them being AI generated? Will we trust AI agents, or do you still want to call the call center to speak to a human? Can we be entertained by computers interacting with each other? Would you want to play soccer, or play chess against each other? Maybe not. The future is ahead of us, and while a lot of this sounds like sci-fi, it really isn't that far off. And it's up to all of us in this room and society to make sure that we build a really awesome future. I think we have the technologies, and I think we have the people to do it. Thank you.
That is amazing talk to end on, especially with all those really fascinating questions at the end. I think to myself about all those things he asked, and I'm like, whoa, I gotta evaluate some things. So thank you so much for joining us. We just have a few extra notes here at the end. For those who are just joining, this is a TED Talks watch party where we hang out, we watch a bunch of TED Talks together, we discuss in the comments, we have a great time, and I think we've been having a pretty good time today. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy this format. I love coming on here and chatting and hanging out with all of you. So let me know if you like this. And we have basically TED Talks for anything and everything. So if there's a specific topic, idea, or thought that you are really particularly interested in and you want to see a TED Talks watch party that focuses on that, feel free to drop that in the comments as well. If you joined late or missed some of the first talks, we will be keeping this up on our YouTube so you can rewatch the whole thing on demand right here on TED's YouTube. And of course, you can find any and all of these talks on our YouTube or on TED.com. One last note is that on March 28th, I'll be coming back right here on TED's YouTube live with TED's game wizard, Alex Rosenthal, and we'll be doing a live demo of all of our new TED games. If you haven't played them yet, you should definitely check them out. They're super fun. And if you're just curious and want to learn more about them, feel free to come back on March 28th. We'll be hanging out, having a great time. So again, this will be left up right here on TED's YouTube. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the comments. We'll be monitoring that for a little bit, and we'll be able to respond and share anything that you are curious about. So you've all been so amazing. I hope you had a great time. One last time, my name is Ike. I'm your host for today's TED Talks watch party, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day.